Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. If you want to see a case or topic covered by Paranormally Listed, then go to criminallylisted.com and fill out the questionnaire under the Suggest a Case tab. While horror movies may sometimes seem outlandish or even ridiculous at their core, they tap into our real fears. However, some horror movies don't just have a kernel of truth to them, but they are actually based on real events. And knowing that is just going to make them much scarier the next time you watch them. Number 3. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Let's start with the 1984 classic slasher film, A Nightmare on Elm Street. The film is about teenagers being chased and attacked by deceased, disfigured child killer Freddy Krueger. The only catch is that they're being chased and killed in their dreams, or nightmares rather. Definitely nightmares. This premise seems fairly imaginative because people can't actually get killed or die in their dreams, can they? It turns out that the film, which launched a whole franchise, is based on a real series of events. The inspiration for the film came to director Wes Craven when he read an article about a refugee family who escaped Cambodia and moved to the United States. The son started having nightmares that scared him so much that he tried to avoid falling asleep. When he finally fell asleep, he seemed to be so scared in his dream that he screamed while sleeping. His parents went to check on him and discovered that he was dead. And while that may seem like a one-off event that couldn't possibly occur again, there's actually a name for the ailment: Sudden Unexpected Nocturnal Death Syndrome, also known as SUDS. It turned out that there was a period when this ailment received a lot of publicity. At the time, most people suffering from and dying from SUDS were Southeast Asian refugees, mostly from Laos, who relocated to the United States in the 1970s. This was following the Vietnam War, in which members of the Hmong minority in Laos fought with the United States against the North Vietnamese. After the war ended, communism took over Laos, and many members of the Hmong people were persecuted and fled the country. These people had clearly experienced traumas due to the war and then were forced to leave their homeland afterward. It would no doubt cause anyone psychological issues. As a result, many of these refugees, mostly young men, suffered from SUDS. When doctors tried to figure out what was happening, they could find no physical symptoms that led to the cause of death. One particular case from 1981 was described in a Los Angeles Times article in which a 47-year-old Hmong man died in his sleep with his wife right next to him. At this point, he was the 13th person of Hmong background who passed away from SUDS since 1978. Over time, there have been a few theories put forward as to what was going on. One theory was that it was due to the nerve gas that these people were exposed to during the war. However, a doctor said that this would make sense given that it only seemed to affect males. Women didn't suffer from it. Plus, all the people were dying at night. If it were due to nerve gas, it would most likely affect them during the day. Another theory put forward is that SUDS has to do with cardiac arrhythmia. However, this isn't across the board because there are some people who succumb to SUDS who didn't have cardiac issues. There's an explanation that members of the Hmong family feel their ancestors are punishing them. In their faith, if a person doesn't practice properly, they don't receive protection from their ancestors. And many of these men were in circumstances in which they were unable to practice properly, whether it was due to the Vietnam War or seeking refuge in the United States. In these cases, the correct course of action is to have a shaman come to look after things with those who are suffering. However, since the Laos immigrants in the United States were spread out in different states, there were many times that there was no shaman available close by. A researcher named Shelley Adler investigated this issue, and she looked at how sleep paralysis functions in the body biologically, but also how cultural explanations of sleep paralysis exist across many different cultures. She came to the following conclusion: It is my contention that in the context of severe and ongoing stress related to cultural disruption and national resettlement, exacerbated by intense feelings of powerlessness about existence in the United States, and the perspective of a belief system in which evil spirits have power to kill men who do not fill their religious obligations, the solitary Hmong man confronted by the numinous terror of the nightmare and aware of its murderous intent can die of suds. So it could be a mix of cultural belief, stress, war, and trauma come together when someone dies of suds. This makes the movie much scarier. Number 2. The Possession. The second movie is a horror movie from 2012 that builds on the legacy of films like 1973's The Exorcist. A child whose parents are divorcing finds a box at a garage sale. While the box is unassuming, throughout the film, a spirit that was locked inside the box takes over the child. Ultimately, they have to destroy the box to destroy the demon. The true story this movie is based on gets fuzzy in points, but here is the gist. A man named Kevin Mannis found a wine cabinet at a yard sale in 2001. At the yard sale, the previous owner, a Polish Holocaust survivor named Havla, told Mannis that it's a Dybbuk box. Havla told Mannis that she purchased it in Spain after escaping the Nazis. Havla warned Mannis not to open the box as it holds a demonic spirit according to Jewish mythology. The spirit is called a Dybbuk. Of course, Mannis did not heed the warning and decided to open the box. Inside, he found 2 pennies from the 1920s, 2 locks of hair, one blonde and one brown, and a statue with the Hebrew word Shalom engraved on it, among a few other things. At one point, he wanted to return the box to Havila, but she refused to take it back. Instead, Mannis decided to bring it to his store, which is where the trouble started. His store was mysteriously trashed by someone. Mannis never found out who wrecked the shop. The employee who was with him when he found the store in this condition quit his job shortly afterward. Mannis also claimed to have vivid and violent dreams in which a demonic hag was attacking him. The effects of being beaten up in his dreams were felt in real life when he woke up with bruises. He ended up gifting the box to his mother, which wasn't a great idea given what he had experienced. And his mother experienced a stroke the same day she received the box. Mannis ended up putting the box on eBay in 2003 and included the story of how he came to own it in the item's description. The second owner, Yusuf Nitsky, also experienced similar events as Mannis. One event was the scent of cat urine in the air, which is also something Mannis said he experienced. The box then found its way to Jason Haxton. Haxton claims that after he received the box, he started dealing with health issues. This including developing highs and coughing up blood. Haxton decided to seal the box and receive some help from rabbis to help deal with these negative repercussions. Haxton then donated the box to Ghost Adventures host Zach Bagans. Bagans added the Dybbuk box to his museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. He planned on opening the box during a miniseries he was hosting called Deadly Possessions. But he grew concerned when there were issues during the production that he attributed to the box. This is similar to what Jeffrey Dean Morgan said in an interview about filming The Possession. He said that there were issues on set, namely light bulbs exploded. Bagans did, however, remove the glass case the box was in. He said that a mist flowed from it. He said he felt an effect from it that he couldn't quite describe, but it wasn't negative. He described feeling the power of it. To me, it felt good. Although he teased that he was planning on fully opening the box on his show and not just taking it out of the glass, he didn't. This apparently frustrated people on social media, but they're always frustrated on social media. However, if you're a skeptic, you're right to be. In 2021, Mannis confessed to having made up the box's story. The true story but who knows with madness, or he confessed to lying once about this box, is the following. When he listed it on eBay in 2003, he made up a story to go with the box. He said in an interview, "I'm a creative writer," and he intended to create a story that was to have it become an interactive horror story in real time. It would seem that the only part of the original story of him finding the box that's true was that he bought it at a yard sale, but not from a Holocaust survivor. He bought it from a lawyer. So, how is it that when people come into contact with the box, they also claim to have negative experiences with it? Even Post Malone had a negative encounter with the box, but you can hear all about that in our video 3 of the Scariest Hollywood Curses. It could even be due to the expectation that the box was cursed, and so they believed the negative that befell them in their lives while the box was in their possession was the cause of it. But who knows, maybe it is cursed, somehow. Number 1. The Mothman Prophecies. And finally, our number 1 horror movie based on real events is the 2002 film The Mothman Prophecies. In this movie, a man becomes obsessed with the legend of the Mothman and finds out more about it. He tried to find the creature in hopes that would somehow enable him to connect with his wife, who had died 2 years prior. While this film is set in present day, 2002, the real-life events that the film is based on take place in 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The real events are as following. One night, when 2 couples were out together, they claimed to have seen 2 gigantic red eyes looking at them. When they tried to escape, they said the creature chased them. This was the first story, and it certainly wouldn't be the last sighting of what became known as the Mothman. The Mothman was described as around 6 or 7 feet tall, with red eyes, but with a moth-like appearance, complete with wings. Accounts of being chased by the Mothman spread throughout Point Pleasant. People also experienced bleeding from their eyes following their encounters, and others reported never being able to sleep quite as well. Along with the sightings, others reported seeing UFOs and finding mutilated pets. The Mothman legend came to a head when, in 1967, the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant collapsed. It turned out that many people who were on the bridge when it collapsed were related to people who claimed to have come into contact with the Mothman. Many people thought that the Mothman caused the bridge collapse. A paranormal expert named John Keel went to Point Pleasant to investigate this situation, primarily due to the UFO sightings because he was writing a book about them. However, Keel became more implicated in the legend of the Mothman. He said, much like his counterpart in the movie, he received phone calls that would be hard to understand. He claimed that there were many different voices on the other end of the phone. He believed that they were giving him warnings. For example, he said he received a call ahead of the bridge collapsing. He called these the Mothman Prophecies, which is the title of the book he published in 1975 about his experiences. Keel asserts that some of these other prophecies included advance notice regarding the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy and the deaths of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. While the Mothman and his prophecies may explain what occurred in Point Pleasant during this period, there are some other explanations for what was happening and what people actually saw. One explanation is that they saw a sandhill crane, a large owl, or a bird, basically any flying animal. There is also the theory that the community was thrust into mass hysteria and paranoia, and fear followed. Someone saw something, perhaps a bird, and the legend grew, and people carried it on and built on it out of fear and panic. So, perhaps it wasn't the Mothman. Whatever it was, the community was convinced that something was happening and believed passionately in it. So next time you watch a horror movie and think, yeah, that could never happen, remember this list, because maybe it did. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.